Hi, I'm Colby with Delmar Fans and Lighting, and I'm here to show you how to install a flexible track lighting system. You will need the following tools: wire strippers, battery drill, tape measure, and a plumb bob. Turn off the power at the circuit breaker box before you begin. The first step in designing your track system is to determine a shape that will complement your space. We've decided on an S curving shape to add a softer architectural feel to our kitchen and bar area. Once you've determined the shape, you want to come up with a simple drawing, and that drawing will act as a guide through the process. Next, we're going to determine our fixture placement. And for this bar, we've chosen to keep our fixtures about 1/3 of the way from the inside of the bar, and that's about 7.5 inches. And then we're also going to frame out the shape of the track system using this masking tape, and we're gonna use the 7.5 inches of where the fixtures are gonna go as the center line of our track. So the full curve of the track won't exceed 15 inches. So these pendants will be on the center line of this track system. So come along and watch how we do this. Now that we've identified where all of our pendants are going to be hung, and we've also used our electronic plumb bob to determine exactly where the junction box in the ceiling will be in the actual layout of the track system, we can now begin to shape this flexible track system within our frame. We're getting close to finishing the shaping of the rail, and we've identified that the rail isn't long enough. So luckily we purchased an additional piece of rail just in case. We've also identified that the end of the rail ends on a curve, and the ends of the rails are always a lot more difficult to bend into the perfect shape. So we're going to cut this rail on a straight part of the track, and then shape and form this other rail that we've purchased to finish the shaping of the track. After using a hacksaw to cut the rail, we want to use a file, a nail file, or any sort of steel file to just clean up the edge so that the end caps will fit in here. After cutting the track system, we went ahead and taped down the first piece of track so that it would stay in place. And then we put a slight bend on this piece and made sure that the curving part fell right over the final pendant location, and we're just going to go ahead and cut this piece and finalize our track shaping. So now that we've finalized cutting and shaping of the rail system, we're going to connect the two pieces of track with these connective conductors, and that'll finalize the shaping and the cutting of our rail system. Next, we're going to use the laser plumb bob to determine where to put our holes in the ceiling for our rigid standoff mounts. You want to keep the standoffs about 30 to 36 inches away from each other on the track. And what I like to do is I like to start off with the first one right on the other side of the last pendant. Next, we're going to use our plumb bob to determine where our standoff mounts should be in the ceiling based on our track system layout. And the plumb bob will give us the exact location in the ceiling that the track is laid out on here. And I like to start with a standoff close to the last pendant and then work my way down. And your standoffs should be about 30 to 36 inches apart from each other through the whole distance of the track. So now that our plumb bob is in place and our mark is on the ceiling, we want to use a Sharpie marker to mark this, but we also want to use a stud finder to determine if we're going to have to use an anchor or if we're going to actually drill the mounts directly into a stud. Next, I'm going to use my battery drill to drill a small pilot hole where we mark the ceiling. Now, based on whether there was a stud in the ceiling or not, we're going to set our anchors. And for this one, there was not a stud in the ceiling, although for my next one, there was a stud in the ceiling, so I won't be using an anchor. I'll just be drilling the mount directly into the stud. Next, we're going to mount the base of the transformer to the junction box, and then we're going to wire the transformer and then secure the transformer to the junction box. For this next part, we're going to lift the whole track system up and secure it to the mounts and to the transformer. I've always found it very helpful to have someone assist you with lifting the track system up so it doesn't bend. Next, we're going to determine how high we want to hang the pendants over the bar. And for this eating and sitting bar, we've determined the pendants will be about 30 inches from the bar so that they're high enough so that there's not an obstruction of view. So what I'll do is I'll measure the distance and then subtract 30, and that's how long I'll cut the cord for the pendant. Next, we're going to re-splice our connector onto our newly cut cord. With these coax cables, it can be a little tricky. So first you want to undo the old cable by loosening both Allen keys, and then make sure there's no plastic ends in there. And then we take this piece here, make sure the piece is nice and straight, slide it in, and then squeeze as you push it in all the way till the end, till you see the piece come through the little visible hole there. And then you tighten this piece first, until that's snug. Go one more round. And then before you tighten this, just kind of reform that outer coaxial sheathing there. And then tighten this one. And this one you only want to tighten just snug. And then we connect it to our connector on the track. So that was how you install a flexible track lighting system. So leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Thanks for joining me here at Delmar Fans and Lighting. Bye.